שלום חברים יקרים, היום יש לנו פרק מיוחד שמרגש אותי מאוד. אנחנו הולכים לדבר על הפריימוורק החדש והמבטיח רימיקס, אבל זאת לא הסיבה של הפרק מיוחד. הסיבה היא שהבאנו את אחד הפאונדרים שעשה בין היתר עוד המון דברים ואתם כנראה מכירים אותו, קנט סי דודס. אז עם המון התרגשות, מיד מתחילים. Hi Kent.
Hi.
Welcome to Israel.
Oh, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, I hope you have a great time here. This is your first time in Israel, right?
Yes, it's the furthest east I've ever been in my life.
Wow.
Yeah. So
You're from Utah?
Utah, United States, yeah.
Cool. So this is an honor to have you in my channel, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. Really, I appreciate it.
Personally, I want to thank you first for all the content that you create, like Epic React, which is the shirt you're just wearing, which is the best React course ever created. So I'm still learning from it, and it's just amazing. And also testingjavahescript.com, which I use a lot. So really big thank you for that.
Well, thank you. That's really nice of you to. I'm really. It's gratifying to me to know that it's helped people so much. So
Wow,
thank you.
it's so much help. So thank you, and also for your open source tool, which personally I use in every project I do. So and my favorite tool is the testing library, which is an amazing tool, and we even have videos about that, how to use it
Oh,
in
sweet.
the channel. Yeah. So thanks again. And actually, we're going to talk about today about another open source tool, an awesome open source tool which you're working on, which is Rimix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
What you're wearing?
yeah. So I got this from the first Remix conference in Utah, which was a blast. So
I'm glad you had a good time.
yeah, wow, it was amazing. So thank you. And first thing first, although I don't think anyone watching it doesn't know you, I think it would be best if you can introduce yourself and just share a bit about your journey and how you got here. And then we can talk about Remix.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Kent C. Dodds, and I am the Director of Developer Experience at Remix. Before that, I was a full-time educator where I made Epic React and testing JavaScript. And before that, I was at PayPal shipping React apps to millions of people all over the world. And learned a lot from that experience and wanted to share that, and that's why I became a teacher. I was a teacher on the side, but that's why I went full-time as a teacher.
Nice.
So yeah, I live in Utah with my wife and 4 children, and I enjoy coming out to events like React Next here in Tel Aviv to share what things that I have learned, and I also just really love Remix and what it has done for my productivity as a web dev, and so that's why I joined up with the team so that I could just talk about Remix all the time.
Yeah, and you can share a word about the team because the team is awesome, right?
Yeah. Yeah, when I joined up with Remix, that was November of just last year. So the company had actually been around for about a year and a half before I joined.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was just Michael and Ryan for that time. So when COVID hit, Michael and Ryan's training business took a big hit because they were focused on in-person training. They did do some remote.
Yeah, let's just share a word about Michael and Ryan. They are the creator of React Router, right? Which we all use.
Yeah, it's used in like 6 to 7 in 10 React apps. It's like an enormous amount of usage, like millions and millions of usage. So yeah, but the React router didn't make them any money, and their training business was subsidizing the work on the router. And so when their training business, React training, kind of went under as far as, well, I mean, it's still active today, but when it was not making money because of COVID, they had to decide what they wanted to do. And they looked at the React router downloads and thought like, wow, if we could just get a fraction of those people to pay us, then we could actually keep this going. And so they decided to make a framework to evolve React Router into something that was a little bit bigger, that managed data for you and other things, and handled server rendering and things. And then the initial idea was to have it be a subscription model where you'd pay for a license or you'd pay for a team license, and then you could ship an app. And they thought if we could just get like 1,000 people on this a year, then we should be able to keep this going for an extended period of time.
I was this close to buy the license just before it became an open source. So
yeah. People, after Michael and Ryan mentioned that it was going to go open source, I had a really privately to me, I had a really hard time not just like telling everybody don't bother buying a license right now, and they did refund anybody who who were like, hey, I just literally bought a license like last week, and they're like, yeah, sure. So, but yeah, they decided after a year of being a developer preview and having licenses, they had around 500 users. They decided that they wanted Remix to be more than just something that was really useful for a couple thousand people. They wanted it to make big waves in the way that people build web applications. And the best way to do that is to make it open source and free. And so they decided to get some VC funding so that they could hire some people and work on it full time without worrying about sustainability right away.
Actually, I have a tiny question about it. I think it's interesting to everyone. So what is the business model from Remix? Because it is an open source, so
that's a great question. Money? So there are some great and some really bad examples of open source sustainability through monetization, like as a business model. And so there was this old database, I think it was called ReasonDB, that was open source. It did not succeed. There are a lot of examples of companies like that start out as open source and they just fail. And so it is obviously a concern. There are other open source projects that succeed very well, like Docker, for instance, and Red Hat. And then there's also Laravel as a lot more similar to what we're doing as a framework, where you have services that are around the framework and they support the maintenance of the framework. Or you also have Rails, and they have Basecamp. And so you have a product that the framework uses and use that. And then there's another option. You just get acquired by somebody who already has a business model. and then they can take care of that. And you can focus on the framework. So we've got options, and the venture capitalists who are investing in the company have just told us, you don't need to worry about making money right now, just worry about getting users. And so we've got at least 1.5 years of runway from just our seed round of funding. And then we have our CEO has in the past several weeks has been talking to VCs for just countless VCs who are interested in a Series A. So we'll see what the future holds, but I am not concerned about the sustainability and longevity of Remix. I mean, it's already too big to fail at this point.
For sure. Maybe give us a brief about what Remix is, because we didn't give...
I don't know. We're talking about this thing, what is this?
What is Remix?
Remix is a web framework, very similar in use case to Next.js, or Rails, or Laravel, or that's framework level, Gatsby a little bit. But that's about as far as the comparison goes. It's more of a remix of those things. And so the unique characteristic of Remix is that it is center stack. Rather than being a back-end focused framework that does some front-end things, or a front-end focused framework that does some back-end things, Remix focuses on the network chasm that stands between your client and your server, and completely manages that for you, so that you can write just the code on either end and not have to worry about that I/O boundary. And so that is what allows Remix to eliminate a lot of state management, which is honestly, like, that network boundary is the most complicated piece of building web apps. And so Remix manages that for you and drastically simplifies your code and improves your user experience.
Okay, so actually I have a question about that. Remix is mostly, I think it's affected by React Router, right? You said about the network tab.
Yeah, it's an evolution of React Router.
You look a lot on the network tab when you build Remix. Like you really put effort on the user experience on that term, right? So
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. what is so special about it? Is it what I just said right now, the user experience, or what you said about the full stack? Because we did have Next.js, like you said, which is very similar. So
what stands out? So for me, I have been involved with Remix, even though I didn't join until just this last November. I've been involved with Remix since the beginning because Ryan and Michael would reach out to me for feedback, and we'd do screen shares, and they'd show me what they were working on, and I'd give them ideas. And so by the time that Remix became available as a developer preview, I was already totally bought into the concepts and everything because I could see that they were nailing the fundamentals. And so the fundamentals that they nail are a laser focus on the web platform itself and emulating what the browser does.
Okay.
And so I was mentioning earlier how Remix enables you to not have to think about application state, which again, like if you just think about the code that you're writing today and think how much of that code is revolves around management of state,
right, and
persisting and reading and mutations and all of that. Right. That's probably 30 to 50% of the code that you write. Like it's a huge amount. And that's where most of the bugs come from too. You have race conditions and form resubmissions and error states, loading states, all of that stuff. So Remix just allows you to delete all of that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I could see when I was talking with Michael and Ryan was that they were on track to bring back the simplicity of late 90s, early 2000s type of web development, which was stateless. You literally, or at least the state would live in the database. And so the user would make a mutation, it would update the database, the browser would be redirected or just need to send back some HTML. And so that HTML, when it was generated, would just read the database again. Right. And so you just never thought about state. It's certainly not on the client. And this is why so many people are just bemoaning the fact or how hard it is to build web apps today, because they look at how complicated a Remix app or a React app is, and they think, wow, this was a lot easier. Like it used to be a lot easier. And I would always just say, well, that's because we're doing a lot more than we used to. And that's correct. We are doing a lot more than we used to. But wouldn't it be cool if we could have the mental model that we used to, like the really simple, we're not thinking about managing state, with the capabilities of modern technology, like React. And so that's what Remix is. That's how it remixes the old with the new to give you an excellent user and developer experience. And so that's what draws me to it. This is, for anybody who's curious about Next versus Remix, we do have a blog post comparing the two, and it's very in-depth, full of nuance, and the TLDR is Remix is better in every possible way. And so you can, if you're like, I don't know, Ken, you dive in because it's pretty in-depth, but it really is. And so I think that it's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, I also really like when you said that and it's also written on the website in the front page. So when Remix is mostly about web fundamentals, that you said you're using the browser API and everything.
Yeah.
So that's what turned me on, this and the user experience and the developer experience you just said. And I really liked it first time I saw it. And then when you joined, it was like, yeah, that's the best thing for sure. If Kent tells the best, that is the best. So we have a really a lot of hope in this framework. Actually, I have like 100 questions about what you just said, but I think it will be best if we do some live coding.
Sure.
And we can talk about it on the way.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, so what I have here, and I guess so you can see it.
Yeah.
I'll turn sideways here. So people may not be familiar with this UI. So if we go to todomvc.com, then we'll see.
Okay.
This is the objective was to help you select a MV star framework. And so
MVC is a model view controller.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And in the early or the mid 2010s. The controller was a little loose, and so that's why it's MV Star, because it was just a little different, and there were just a lot of UI libraries that would help you with this, and so they wanted to compare them. So they built an app that was a to-do sort of app.
Oh, okay, I see.
And so in every one of the frameworks, you could compare the code. The interesting thing here is that all of these were just front end. They would use local storage for persistence. And so they were not really that complicated, which was one of the big criticisms of the project, was that it wasn't really real world enough. But this is also around the time when we decided to get rid of the server and just do everything on the client. And so if you pull up any one of these examples, and you look at the view source, there's like nothing in here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This is the time where we decided, hey, let's kick the MPAs to the curb and just go a spot. So I decided to implement this in Remix and just see what a Remix implementation would be. Now, a couple of differences here. So of course we can have a bunch of different to-dos and things.
Yep.
Interesting thing about this is that it is persisted to an actual database. There is user authentication. So if I go, actually, I'm not running local. Let's run the local version. That's the deployed version. So it also is deployed to production. But we'll run the local version.
And when you run the local version, I want to pay attention that how fast it is, right?
Yeah.
To load a server and the client together, like in seconds or less.
Yeah. It is very. I still am not over that. Where it used to be a 30-second. Okay, start the dev server and you wait 30 seconds. Go to Twitter and get distracted and stuff.
Yeah. We have a project which it takes like 3 minutes or something like that, even more. Like,
yeah.
when it gets bigger and bigger, so Remix is really good at that, right?
Yes. Yeah. And this will. No matter how big your project goes, it will be done. Like this one was 221 milliseconds. Wow. I have a project that's 27,000 lines of code, and it's still less than a second.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's amazing. Wait, I just have a quick question about it.
Yeah.
You don't use like Webpack bundler, or you do?
Right. Yeah. We use ESBuild for our bundler. We're actually thinking about switching things around. We'll keep what we have today, but we're going to add potentially a plugin for bundlers. So you could put it into Webpack, or you could put it into your own ESBuild or whatever else. So that way we have better support for things like CSS modules or HMR, or we have maybe Vite support and stuff as well. So, but right now it's our own bundler compiler thing, and and
so you have a lot of work.
Yeah. There's a lot of work into this for sure. So I've got a user in here, and boom, we've got a bunch of to-dos and stuff in here.
Nice.
Okay, and we'll go to the playground because that's where we're gonna be working. So, I re-implemented this. It supports user persistence, and it goes over the network as opposed to just in local storage, which is synchronous. So the amount of code you would think, or the amount of features is a lot more in what we have here, and I can show you some of that stuff as much as you want to see.
I want to see everything. So
everything. Okay.
Yeah. Please show me.
Okay. So I'll take you on a quick tour of the structure of the app. So your app code starts in the app directory. That's where all of your app code is going to be. We also have a Prisma directory here.
Oh, Prisma is great.
Yeah, love Prisma. It's amazing ORM. So yes, we do have a Prisma directory for that, but all like the primary code that you write is going to be in the app directory. And the first code that you have written that will run is in this entry.server. I should mention Remix ships with its own static server and a like mini express server, but you can hook it into anything else. So you could, my personal website hooks into Express. Other people are using it with Fastify. Some people are shipping it on Vercel and Netlify on their serverless stuff, AWS, all of that.
Okay. So you still have to fetch the data from your server at the Remix server, like right?
Remix. So what all of these for all of these platforms we have adapters, and these adapters just turn the request and response from their platform-specific counterpart into a web fetch request response.
Yep.
And so all of your code is only working with the web fetch API, regardless of what platform or server architecture you are shipping to.
That means no Axios as well.
That's right. Yeah, you don't need Axios. You have
great.
regular fetch, and that works both on the client and the server. You don't typically use fetch on the client, actually, not directly.
Yeah.
When you're using Remix, we have an abstraction for you that works really, really well. But on the server, you absolutely can use fetch if you need to call a third-party API or something, and that's polyfilled.
Okay.
So yeah, your first code is going to be in this entry server, and you're responsible for the server render. So when a request, the initial request comes to your server, a user came from Google or something.
Yep.
This is the code that's going to run. This is the request they made. By the time this is called, it actually we've already called your loaders. So it's kind of a misnomer to say this is the first code that's run. It technically is, the module is the first that's imported, but this function isn't called until all of your loaders have been run. Your loaders are to get data. So we say, okay, let's get all the data for the page that the user wants, and now we'll hand that off to you so you can render the components that need to be rendered based on what page is currently active.
Okay, so I think it's worth mentioning that are we using like server-side rendering here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we do use client-side rendering as well.
Yes.
Eventually, right?
Yeah. So it will get hydrated. Yes. Yeah. We remix the MPAs with SPAs. So multi-page apps of times past.
Yeah. Old versus new, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So what I think is interesting about this is that most frameworks will obfuscate or hide away the actual server rendering portion. But
Magic.
Remix does not. Yeah, it's all magic. Remix does not do this. So you are the one responsible for sending that response.
Okay, that's great.
So you are the one calling render to string. So if you want this to be use React streaming, you can do the render to pipeable stream yourself. And with the advent of React 18, Remix supported all of that stuff out of the box without needing to make any changes.
Yeah.
So I like
it
that.
really makes you like understand what the code is doing, right? And the web fundamentals, like we just
yeah,
okay,
exactly. This response object is it's a global object. You dive into the types for that, and this is web fetch API. We just polyfill that for you on the server,
cool.
Which is awesome. Only in contexts that need that. So like Cloudflare workers, we run there as well, and we don't need to polyfill that because they have that built in. So then on the client, you are responsible for hydrating the client as well. So we have this hydrate route that allows you to hydrate the entire document, not just an element in the body, but everything between the opening and closing
like a full page.
HTML. Yeah. So your component, your root component, is responsible for everything between the opening and closing HTML element.
Why is it like that?
Well, there are a lot of benefits to this. So just in contrast, most frameworks will, or like Create React App, will have a div with an ID of root, and this is where you're going to be hydrating your app, is right there.
Okay.
But because you are doing that, if you need anything to go into the head element, then you have to do something funny with React Helmet and use effects and things like that. So you don't have to do that with Remix, because you're the one rendering the head. So if you want something in the head, you just render it there. Or even what's even better is we also have our route modules have the ability to add meta tags and links, and so you just render these, and then each of your route modules can say, hey, when I'm active on the page, I want these things on the page. So and this can all be data driven as well. So you get the data for that page right here, and you can say what the title should be and all sorts of other things.
Okay, so we can share, like we can reuse our code.
Oh yeah. It's outrageously easy, way easier than anything else that you've done for this use case, I'm sure.
Cool.
The other thing, on my website, I actually control the class name based on state on the HTML element. And before being able to do this, I had to do a use effect to change it manually. My God. So it's kind of nice, actually, to be able to have control over the entire document rather than just like an element.
Not a fork, isn't it?
No.
With use effect, no?
No,
Okay.
I literally am just I've got this.
Oh, I mean the use
component.
effect on the.
Oh yeah, so we don't have to do that in Remix.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I was saying. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
saying about your
Yeah,
the old way.
my old way, yes, it was a lot of work, exactly.
Yeah, and I see you're using Tailwind,
Yes, yeah, we're using
which
Tailwind
is
here.
amazing.
That's not built into Remix, probably won't ever be, but it's pretty simple to get up and going. And in fact, our project generators are all preset with
Yeah, you have the
set up for
stacks,
Tailwind.
which
Yep.
we can mention
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
Okay.
So I love Tailwind. I feel like it is the end game for CSS.
Yeah, you don't
Not
write
everybody
anymore?
agrees, but yeah, I don't typically write raw CSS.
Yeah?
Or I certainly don't do CSS in JS
I
either.
think that's really important advice. Like
Yeah.
I'm for sure I'm in Tailwind like for years, and I don't write CSS also. I don't see a reason.
Yeah.
Tailwind just like take
It's-
everything for you, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is that it caps out. So you add more and more and more CSS because you're adding more class names and stuff. But eventually, you're gonna reach a maximum, and so you will only ever get less than 10 kilobytes of CSS for the
Yeah.
entire app.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Which is nuts. Now, of course, you do still have class names in your HTML, but that naturally code splits because it'll just code split with your regular bundles.
Yep.
And it's just regular CSS too. So you don't have to worry about what am I trying to say? Just, like any of the. No, I lost what I was trying to say, but
Okay.
it's amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is this. Now there's a special component in here called an outlet.
Okay.
This is from React Router v6 that allows for nested routing. So Remix has support for layout nested routing. You might be familiar with Gatsby and Next.js, how they have a file system that is conventional routes.
Yep. The pages.
Yeah,
folder.
their pages folder.
Okay.
Yep. And so as you make files and folders and things, that it controls what the URL is going to be for a particular component. The drawback, so that is fine, and we actually do the same thing. We have our own convention as well. And I should mention, since we're talking about this, we also have the ability in your Remix config to define routes programmatically if you want to do that as well.
Oh yeah.
But the additional thing that Remix does is that it not only lays out your URL according to these components, but also your UI is nested. And so, for example, this root component will always be rendered on every route. So you're always, because every page needs an HTML, every page needs a body.
Right.
So this root component will always be rendered. And then you go into your routes, and if we look at our index, that's going to be our home page, right?
Okay.
Oh, actually, I don't go to the home page. I automatically redirect you over to to-dos.
Yeah.
So if we go to our to-dos page then, and we'll skip down to the bit of code where we've got our component. Yeah, so here's our to-do app. You'll see that in here, we're not rendering an HTML or a body, whereas in Gatsby and Next, you would have to, because those routes are responsible for the entire page. And of course, like in Gatsby and Next, they take care of the head and the body and all of that for you, which is actually, I don't think that's a plus. But what's critical here is that this section is going to go right in this outlet.
Okay,
right
I see.
Here.
I see.
And so the UI is nested, and this goes as deep as your file system goes.
So this reminds me of view slots, right?
Yeah, it is similar in a way. Except with view slots, you can have multiple slots per thing. And actually, React has the same kind of concept. So if you have my component, and I wish that developers would use this idea more, because it would save a lot of pain from prop drilling and things.
Okay.
But you could have your, here's another div, and here's my left nav, and then here's my main content, and my other div for my right nav or whatever, or maybe footer, something like that. So this could be our layout component.
Yep.
And then you'd have your left nav, main content, and footer, right? So that's basically slots from Vue. It's the same idea. So an outlet component is similar, except that you can only have one. So outlet component is a lot more like children, where there's only one sensible child. And the reason for that is because the outlet component is associated to the URL. So you can only be in one place at one time, and so it doesn't make sense to have multiple outlets. I mean, you definitely can. And if you do, then you end up with two apps, so two instances of that component.
So what you're saying is this is actually the router.
Yes, that's a router. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you don't have to think about every routing except the routes you just
you lay it out in the file system the way that you want to, and the router will hook things up.
And no browser router and all of that.
No, you don't set any of that up yourself.
That's great. That's great.
So each route, though, is going to have, here, let's go with the login. That's a little smaller. So each route has its own kind of convention for the different things that are in it. So one is this links export. And here, because I'm using to-do MVC, I don't want Tailwind on the whole app because I'm using their CSS for that app. So this actually is kind of a cool way to explain why Remix makes regular CSS so great. So the problem that we had with regular CSS, and the reason that everybody jumped into CSS and JS and everything, was because what we were doing was we'd take like 600 CSS files or SAS files, we'd compile them and concatenate them together and then stick them on the page. Right? That's what I was doing at PayPal and at Domo and at what is that other company called? They're at Task. What are they called now? Workfront. So at all these bigger companies, that's what inevitably would happen. You just have a bunch of CSS files, you compile them, concatenate them together, and put it on the page for every page.
Right.
And so we're like, well, the cascade really stinks because I changed this file over here and it changes some other route way over there. And so now let's use CSS and JS. We co-locate our styles, and it's only on the page when it's actually there and all that. Or maybe it's not, but it only applies to the part that we're talking about. So, and so then if you don't want to do that, you're making all these conventions, like we had BEM and all of these things. I've done every single one of these things. And so Remix changes things, and it says, hey, a CSS file is associated to a particular route.
Nice.
And so when I am, if we go logged out, I'm on the login page, and we take a look at the output here, we can see in the head we have this link tag for the Tailwind CSS. And I put that link tag on there by this export called links, where I could say it's a rel style sheet. Here's the URL to the Tailwind. And that's my generated styles. It's right there. So that's my Tailwind generated styles. So
so basically I could do like separate styles files and connect them to each fetch.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And so yeah, exactly. It is amazing. It's awesome. And so that's why I'm able...
the bundle size as well.
Yes, precisely. And so here on the to-dos playground and also on to-dos, I'm bringing in the to-do style sheet. And so when I'm making changes to my Tailwind, I'm not affecting the to-dos page. And when I'm making changes on my to-dos, I'm not affecting my Tailwinds page because here I am with just the to-dos. I no longer have the Tailwind styles on the page.
Nice. I have to ask, does it affect SEO? I don't know.
To like which styles you have on the page?
Yeah, because I don't know if you preload the entire CSS. Is it better? I don't know. I really don't know. Is it better to preload the entire CSS or have a tiny CSS for each page?
Oh, I see. So from an SEO standpoint, the only impact it will have is that this sort of thing would have is on the performance. And from the performance standpoint, this is a positive impact because the performance is better.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's phenomenal. It makes it so that if you do want to just write regular CSS, it's really straightforward because it's all just associated to your routes.
Yeah, just like in the old days.
Yeah, just like, but the problem is even in the old days, if you wanted to have a CSS file per route, you had to like connect them. It would, if you want to use variables, like there are a lot of challenges with that. And Remix just makes it a lot easier.
That's great.
And this works even on subroutes too. So this app isn't a very good example of doing subroutes, but if we had like one page, if we had like sales, invoices, customers, customer ID or something like that, that customer ID route could have some CSS that's specific only to it and doesn't really apply to other routes that aren't active on that page. So
cool.
So that's one of the things that shows up in a route module. we also have this, we saw earlier the meta is another one. So we can control that anywhere. So if I wanted to say, actually, I think it might, meta, yeah, here it is. So I can export, what my title should be for this page. And that also has my loader, or I think it's just data, where I could say the description is, data dot length, or here a better example would be my website. Actually, if we go to talks, then you can see the title is 67 talks by Kent all about software development. That actually came from the data. Yes, exactly. You got it. And so the description on here also will say topics include, and so I can derive that based on what talks I've given and things like that. How many times I've delivered these talks, all of that stuff can be completely dynamic, which makes this really nice. Okay, so another thing that we can export here is the loader. So your loader is responsible for loading data, and this only runs on the server.
Okay, but we are in a React component file, right?
Yes, in the same file where you have your component for that route. Yeah. So your route in a Remix context is about a lot more than just the front end UI portion. Okay. It also is has all of the data getting and the data mutating associated to it. So it resembles a lot like PHP, honestly. So it's like when I hit this,
I'm not sure that's a good.
Yeah. It's like the good parts of PHP. Okay. PHP is great. So when I get or when I post or whatever to this route, what happens? And so when we do a get for this this page, if it's the browser just doing a get, then Remix is going to say, okay, let me run all of the loaders to load the data, and then I'll pass that on to you so you can render the HTML and send back an HTML response. But during client transitions, we need to go and load that data too so we can render all of this stuff on the client. And so in either case, your loader is going to be called for this particular route. And this loader is responsible for getting all of the data that this route needs. Maybe a better example of this would be on the Remix Run homepage, where we have an example app that demonstrates some of the nested routing here. So we have our root route, and then on here we have a sales route, invoices, and invoice ID. So invoices is a good example where this would have a loader export that's responsible for exporting the overdue amount, the due soon amount, and the list of invoices that we have. And so the loader would load that data, and then the default export is the React component that is responsible for rendering that page.
Okay, so actually I have a question about it. In what scenario do the loader loads in the backend side, and what times it's going in the client side?
Yeah, so on the initial page load, like if we're going to my website, kentcdodds.com, that initial request is going to first, Remix will grab that and be like, oh, okay, I know, because I'm the router, I know all of the modules that are responsible for loading for this particular UI. So let me call their loaders. And in particular on my homepage, it's going to be my root loader and my routes.index.tsx loader. And so it's going to call both of those loaders, and it calls them in parallel. And then it gives that back to me, and I render the HTML for that. I pass along the data and everything. And then that's what we saw in the entry.server. And then it sends back the HTML. But now that we're hydrated on the client, we have JavaScript on the page. We can give the user an even better experience than they had before. So if I go to the workshops page now, here actually it might be good to show the network tab for this as well. So if I go to workshops, then that actually loaded some data also. That is this one. And if we look at the preview here, that's loading all of the workshops that I've got. And so that is going to be a client-side fetch because we don't want to do a full page refresh. We want to preserve focus management of the stuff like that. And so in that case, Remix makes a special request, which is an implementation detail. You should not rely on this, but it just makes a request to the route with a special query parameter says, here's the route that I need to go get data for. Because there could be multiple routes on the page. An example of this would be calls, where if here, let's pull this up again. If I click on this, then here we're loading this route, and I need the data for that particular route. But we actually also have just the calls page itself, and I don't know how to get to this page from another page. But if I did,
Okay.
then we'd see that it would load the route for this calls, which is the shell. And so the calls route is responsible for all of this stuff and for rendering the list of all of the episodes. And then each particular episode route, so the rest of this URL is responsible for just that particular episode.
And it will fetch on the client side.
Yes, and that will fetch on the client for client transitions. But of course, it all server renders as well. So if I just do a full page reload, then we'll see there's no data request here because that was all part of it.
Only when I navigate to another page with a nested route or something, I use the loader in the client side, something like that.
Yeah, your loader will be called from the client. Yeah.
Okay.
But if you're not, if you land on the page, your loader will still get called. It'll just get called as part of the server render process.
Yeah.
If you're navigating between pages, it will also get called, but it's going to be a fetch request. In your case, or in the way that you think about it, you don't. You don't think about it.
Okay.
You really actually, when I say that the mental model is similar to that of like late 90s, early 2000s, I really mean that. So whether you're just loading data or making a data mutation or anything, you actually don't think about whether you're doing a client transition or if it's a full page reload or any of that. It's all, the mental model is the simple one, and then Remix makes the complex stuff easy.
Okay. I have to ask something.
Yeah.
How is it so fast? Like, is it the Wi-Fi here,
yeah.
is it your
Well,
website?
so let's talk about this.
I didn't see any loader over here.
Yeah. So I can show you a loader.
Okay,
and I have to do it in a special way. So I'm gonna go to the calls page, and I'm gonna click on it really quick. I go, boom, calls. Oh shoot. No, let's try chats. Sorry, it's just so fast.
It is.
There we go. Okay, we got a loading screen.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
So the reason that it's so fast, there are a couple of reasons. Now, for one, this could be faster. My backend skills when I started this were not very great. They're still not awesome. And so I'm doing some really suboptimal things. For example, I'm logged in. Every time I make any network request, I'm actually hitting the database to get user information to determine stuff. Some of that's necessary and some of it's not. And so I could optimize some of that. So it could be faster. But you did notice it's pretty darn fast. Yeah. There are a couple of reasons for that.
Okay.
One is this is deployed on Fly, which is a really awesome service. Fly.io that can distribute your server to many places all over the world, and they feature Remix.
Nice.
So I deploy mine to 6 regions all over the world, and I think the closest one to where we are is Amsterdam.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's close enough.
So it's pretty close. Like we could probably be closer, but so that comes with a big benefit of just being geographically closer. And that's not only the server, but also the database and my Redis cache and all of that too.
What database do you use?
I use Postgres.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's so it's a distributed Postgres cluster that has automatic read replicas. The main or what is it called? Yeah, the primary is in Dallas, which is closer to me because I'm selfish that way, I guess. But yeah, so when you make a write, that's going to go to Dallas, and then it will propagate within like 200 milliseconds to all the other regions.
Nice.
So that's one reason why it's fast.
Yeah.
The other reason it's fast is prefetching. So Remix, because Remix knows all of the data requirements and code requirements and CSS requirements, all of that, just by looking at the URL, it doesn't need to render anything. Then as we can look at a link and say, oh, I know where that's going to go. Let me go get all of the resources necessary for activating that page. And so when I hover over this calls page or the Discord or courses, I've actually prefetched all of that stuff. So by the time I click on it, it's an instant transition.
So you did like in Remix, you did some kind of implementation, when I hover with the mouse, I prefetch the data, which is amazing.
Yes, it's
which, by the way, you talk about in your Epic React.
Yeah,
right?
I do talk about that. Yeah,
I'm a good student.
Yeah, so that's right. Yeah, but with Remix, it's actually a lot easier than what I show in my course because Remix is your data fetching library, and it's your router and it's your compiler. So it knows all of the things. You don't have to do any manual wiring up of anything. But yes, exactly that is what's going on.
And I will share a secret that you're also trying to, how do you say, trying to understand when does the user is about, like what he's about to do, like when you move the mouse towards the link or something like that, right?
Yes.
So I saw it in one of your videos.
Yeah, exactly. So the link element has a prop on it called intent.
Yep.
And it's called prefetch, and you can specify intent. And so the reason we called it that was because we didn't want it to be on focus or on mouse over or anything like that, because we do want to eventually develop some sort of smarts that says, hey, the user's going to this link, so let's go ahead and start prefetching now. Because it's not a huge penalty to start prefetching something, but it can be if you don't start early enough. So yeah, those are a couple of reasons why it's so fast. Are you going
to use AI or something like that?
Maybe, I don't know. I think it wouldn't be too complicated, just a mouse move event and keep track of where the links are. I don't know.
Yeah.
Might be.
Yeah, that's innovative. Okay.
So anyway, super fast. And because the other cool thing is because of layout nested routing, this component is only responsible for loading this data and this data. It doesn't care anything about this other than to say, if I have any children, this is where they go in the UI. And so the benefit of that is that this route is also doesn't care about its parents. So let's say that the root route needs to determine which links to show based on who's logged in or something. With Gatsby and Next in their pages directories, every single page is responsible for the whole thing. Yep. You need a layout route and stuff. If you need to server render the proper links, then every single page needs to do that data requesting and all of that to determine which link should be rendered and send some props and whatever, which is super annoying. And so, of course, what we do instead, because that's really complicated, doesn't scale to like big teams or anything,
right?
Or even a single person on a big project. What we do instead is we'll just co-locate our data requirements to the components that require them and do it in the client instead. There are a lot of problems with that. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit in my talk tomorrow at React Next.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, having layout nested routing makes a big impact on the performance and also the user or the developer experience as you're building out your UI.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about a little bit about data mutations. And if one thing I really like is optimistic UI. So
yeah, let's talk about both of those. So one of the things that is the reason why our application state management is so complicated is because of mutations.
Right.
It's one thing if all you're doing is getting data and displaying it. That's easy. Like every framework has a nice solid solution for that. I feel like Remix's solution for that is actually really nice comparatively. But if all you're doing is just getting a bunch of data and displaying it, then that's
not enough.
Like state management isn't really a problem in that situation. But it's when state changes is when state management becomes a big challenge.
Occurs.
Yeah. So let's take a few steps back and we talk about before JavaScript frameworks came to be. And we're just loading everything from the server. The way that it would work is you'd render some HTML onto the page that would have a form on it. You type in your input and then you'd hit submit.
Right.
What's going to happen there is, assuming that you said method post on your form, is it will post to that URL. It will automatically serialize all the form stuff. The server will be able to get those form values, do some mutation in the database, and then if it's doing things correctly, it'll send a redirect to tell the user to go to the next page.
Yeah, for the action property, right?
Yeah, it'll be a location header on the response that it sends back.
Oh, okay.
And so then the browser gets that and says, oh, you want me to go somewhere else. So then it will make a GET request to whatever location you send it to. And so then the server handles that, and it doesn't know anything about the previous mutation. It doesn't care, because all that it knows is that I got a GET request at this URL. So now let me go generate the HTML. Let's go to the database and let's get all that. And it turns out that the database has the mutation you just made. But the server doesn't know or care about that. Let's just get whatever the latest is. We'll render that. and then send that to the client. And so nowhere in there does state management become a problem, because the store is literally the database, which is like the least common denominator for everything. Like that's where the data is persisted. Right. So a very simple mental model. When we bring in JavaScript and start doing client-side rendering, now we're making this request, and most of the time, what we try to do is have that response have the changes of whatever we changed. So we're like in a REST situation, you're saying, hey, post this new event, and then the event will come back with like, here's the event data. And so then we'll go into our Redux store or something, and we'll go update the event data based on what came back, right? Okay. So we'll try to do that. It'll re-render and everything works out normally okay, but it's like, this doesn't scale very well. It's very hard to manage this for a lot of reasons, but you end up writing a lot of code and you having a lot of bugs. Okay. So what Rimix decides to do is we say, hey, listen, the way that the browser used to do this was actually really great. The problem is like doing full page reloads for form submissions and stuff was not cool. So what if we just do the same thing the browser did, just in JavaScript, so we don't have to have the full page refreshes. So when you make a mutation, and that response comes back, Rimix is like, I don't care about the response unless it's like a location redirect. If it's a redirect, then it'll do a redirect. But it's going to say, I'm just going to take all of the data that's on the page and revalidate it. Just like the typical like server browser interaction was. Like, we're literally revalidating every time we go to a different page. Let's just do that as our default. And of course we can optimize away. Like, there are some situations where like, I don't want to go get all that data again. I didn't even change much. But as a default, this drastically simplifies so much, because now you have a form component that you use, and here are all my form elements, and when I hit submit, it'll go serialize it for me, it'll send it all to the backend. Backend can do its thing, and all of the data on the page gets revalidated automatically. So you're never thinking about keeping your data fresh.
That's nice. So no more event.prevent default.
No, you don't have to write it. Now, of course, for us to do our job, we're doing it. We are saying prevent default, because otherwise you get a full page refresh. We don't want that.
So this
so that's still happening, but you don't have to do it. And so if we look at the to-do app, for example, and here we have this form component. We can talk about this a little bit later, but we have this form to create a new to-do.
Yep.
You've just got inputs. You see that there's no value prop on that input here. There's one here. We can talk about that a little bit later as well. But you have no like controlled state. We do have support for error management and everything in here. This might be a bad example because it's an input without a submit button. Yeah, actually the to-do is probably a pretty bad example anyway. But like, we do have, if we look at each list item, this is for toggling a to-do. You click the checkbox. So we do have a submit button for that. And when you click on the checkbox, it's actually going to submit. This isn't actually a checkbox. It's a form button. You have your an input for updating the fetcher itself, or updating the to-do, and then a button for deleting that fetcher. And in none of this do you have an event prevent default or some sort of fetch implementation, no use effects. In fact, I think I do have a couple of use effects in here for state management. Oh, actually, you know what? I don't even need that for our playground situation. It's just when we start getting into optimistic UI that where that matters. So anyway, your state management becomes really easy. I do have one use state that's for our optimistic UI stuff. I do have like I said, a couple of use effects, but for the most part, you can build a really full-featured app just using this form, because all of your data is going to be automatically kept up to date. And I should also mention that when you submit a form, that's going to go somewhere. It goes to your server, similar to the loader. And so in our route module, we have this action function.
Yeah, that was missing. I was going to ask, what is the action part?
So this action function is responsible for all non-get requests that hit this URL.
So this is like a post request.
Yes,
exactly. A loader is a get and an action is a post. Okay.
Precisely. Yeah, and in fact, a form in the browser only supports 2 methods. So there's no delete or put. It's only get and post.
Oh.
And so
you delete with a post, with an action.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I mean, you can totally use a delete if you really want to. So we can say method delete here. Okay. The problem is that doesn't progressively enhance because that's not supported by the browser. You have to have JavaScript for that piece to work. And so even though we don't really care too much about the app working without JavaScript, it's nice if it can. And so it doesn't make it any more complicated to use a post instead of a get because it's all just in one file anyway. It's not like you have some sort of network boundary or some contract with the backend service. If you had that, you have a backend service that does stuff, you could totally just say down here where we have our delete, if we're not talking directly to the database or something, you can say return fetch, to myapi.com, and then here's your method is delete. So like if you have an API that does this, then you totally can do that, and that's the way I would do it too. But yeah, so we have our action here that gets what the intent was, so which button was submitted or which form was submitted.
Nice.
And this is actually not a remix thing. This is just a convention that we follow, or that is pretty common. So if we look down into our actual form, you'll see that this this fetcher for creating has a hidden input for the intent. So when this form is submitted, the intent will be create to do. And then for this button, actually submit buttons can have a name and a value. So when I click on this one, the value of intent will be toggle all to-dos.
Nice.
And so you can actually have multiple submit buttons for a single form and change the name and intent or change the name and value on those to determine which one was submitted. And so that's how we can handle a bunch of different posts in this single action is just by switching off of this intent.
And this is a convention you learned from somewhere else? Like it's not a Remix thing?
Yeah, Ryan and I kind of came up with it.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah,
so it is Remix.
It's like sort of, but there's nothing in the Remix source code that says, hey, use intent or anything.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier about a progressive enhancement, which is a concept, or I don't know. And can you just share a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So when we were looking at this form, I said, hey, you want to use method post or method get. Don't use anything else because it's not supported by the browser. And why does that matter? It matters because we can actually, I can turn off JavaScript on this page. You can, on any page you want, you go into DevTools, you type in Command-Shift-P to open up the command palette, type in JavaScript and have it disabled. When you do that, it will prevent JavaScript from being loaded. So there's no JavaScript on this page.
Okay.
So nothing to prevent default. And so when I click on this button, you'll see I do a full page refresh for these. So the entire app still works.
Nice.
I can even edit, and everything is still working in this experience. I can look at my active, my completed. I can clear the completed.
Because everything runs in the browser, right?
Yeah, everything runs
server.
on the server. Yeah, exactly. So progressive enhancement was coined back in 2003, forever ago.
Wow.
Where they're saying, hey, let's just make sure that the entire app experience has a baseline of functional, and then as the browser has more capabilities, we will enhance that the application for the people who have more capabilities.
Right.
And so it's kind of like real world accessibility, where we say, let's make every building enterable by anybody, whether they're on wheels or on feet. And then for people who happen to be able to use their feet, that will give them stairs to make it a little faster for them or whatever.
Okay.
Right? So we're enhancing the experience for for browsers that have more capabilities is the idea.
Okay.
So that's why we kind of want to think about keeping that baseline of a functional app and then just making things better for those who have more capabilities. And so JavaScript is only one such thing, but let's say that you have a slow network. So let's enable JavaScript. This is why this matters. So I'm navigating here. Actually, it'll be easier to see if we go from nothing. So I just clicked on a link. Oh, whoops. It's pretty fast if you don't have a simulated slower environment. So I'm going to this page. It's going to take a while, and I type in hello, whatever, and I hit enter. So my JavaScript hadn't actually loaded before. Oh, you know what? It had, because it was all in the disk cache. So let's disable the cache as well.
Okay.
Say that, and this sort of thing happens a lot. Like you deployed a new app, a user who's been there a lot shows up later, right? So this isn't a contrived situation. This absolutely happens a lot. So let's, with the right setting, we can look at this. Disable the cache, slow 3G. You just deployed a new app. An existing user comes in and they're like, I need to enter a new to-do. And I enter that in really fast. You notice the JavaScript was still downloading when I did that.
Right.
But the app still works.
Nice.
I don't have to have the JavaScript downloaded to be able to do that. Maybe something more common for this particular app would be, okay, I finally finished that to-do. Let me just pull this out of my phone really quick and pull that up. Oh man, this is slow. Okay, I got it. Boom, now I'm gone.
Nice.
And I don't have to wait for the entire app experience to finish loading before I can actually use it. Right. So this is why it matters, is that I can have this really nice experience as a user. And then on top of that, what's really cool about this for us as developers is that if you can use your app without JavaScript enabled, that is proof that you don't need state management on the client to make it work.
Right.
And so, yeah, and then we don't really have time to go deep into this, but the optimistic UI story for this is also really good. So I'm going to the regular to-dos page, and this is why we actually care about having JavaScript. So once you have JavaScript, what kind of experience can you give your users? And the kind of experience is amazing. So watch this. I'm still on a slow 3G network.
Right.
And
oh, nice.
I can
super fast
enter all of those in. What's really cool about this is I can like toggle this a million times, and it's always going to be correct because Remix is going to make sure that we're canceling the requests that are no longer needed.
Amazing.
All of that. And so I can check all of these off. I can delete one. I can even have like error management handling and stuff. So I say, here's 6, 7, error, 5, 4, whatever. And the error will come back. I have it coded on the back end. If you submit error, it'll say, hey, can it?
So everything can work without JavaScript, and we get the progressive enhancement.
To make it work better with
JavaScript. Make it work better.
Exactly.
I really like it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, we can talk for hours, but
obviously.
we need to wrap it up. So I just want to talk a little bit about migration because I have a lot of projects in Gatsby and Next.js, which are great, but I do like to migrate to Remix. So can you share a bit about what's the best way to do it? Should we do like, I don't know, copy paste or fully, I don't know.
Yeah. So if you're migrating an app that uses React Router, that's easy. That's something you can do in 10-minute increments, and like, you know, work 10 minutes and then deploy. Work 10 minutes, deploy, and over time you'll get migrated. That's where we're focusing a lot of our attention is that sort of migration. For something with Gatsby or Next, they're not using React Router, and so it's a little bit more complicated. But for me, I did a complete rewrite from Gatsby, so I can't really help you too much there. But we've got a lot of people in our Discord who are migrating from these frameworks. And I don't know, I can't tell you anybody specifically for Gatsby, but for Next, what a lot of people are doing is they just connect Next and Remix in the same Express server, and then just route to the different apps. And then over time, they'll move more routes over. That works out pretty nicely. You could do the same thing with Nginx. Yeah, there's not really a smooth transition because you're not using React Router. So it'll be a little bit more involved. But it is worth it.
It is, for sure. Okay, I think we'll wrap it up. So, Kent, thank you so much for all of the great information you just spelled in, I don't know, less than an hour. And this is amazing and a really promising framework. And I just want to mention 2 more things. One is the stacks, right?
Yes.
Because Remix, you realize that an app is not just the front end and not just the back end. It's all kind of ecosystem of tools like Prisma I just mentioned. So you did come up with the stacks? Or
yeah. So the stacks idea was Ryan's idea, and it was just this thing where we would do a slam dunk and then hand the ball over to somebody and say, okay, now you do it. It's like there's a lot involved with being able to do that, and so so having a project generator that comes with all the tools pre-configured and deployment ready and everything was really helpful. And we opened that up. So we have 3 built-in stacks or official stacks, but then we opened it up for other people to make their own. And so Netlify has one for deploying to Netlify. AWS or Amplify is working on one.
Okay.
And then individuals are building their own. And it's really, at a fundamental level, it's just a project generator, but it's pretty helpful for people.
Great. And the last thing is that you mentioned your Discord. So do you want to tell our who's someone to watch it?
Yeah.
Can you tell everyone, what do you say? The viewers? How do you say?
I can tell everybody how to get to our Discord. So the best place to get into our community is to go to remix.run. You scroll down to the bottom, you'll find all of our socials and everything, and Discord is on there.
Okay.
There's also our YouTube, our Twitter, and GitHub.
Oh, the YouTube is great, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Ryan has put some really awesome videos.
Yeah, really deep videos. Like,
Yeah, and there's also, I put an Egghead course together that goes through the Getting Started guide, the Quick Start guide, and the Jokes app deep dive. I have a 6-hour live stream that you can go through the deep dive with me. So yeah, lots of really cool stuff available for learning and becoming involved in Remix.
Great. Okay, so thank you so much for being here once again, and
absolutely.
we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And have a great time in Israel. And everyone who has a question, I believe you can.
Just hit me up on
you have a
Twitter,
Twitter?
or Discord. I'm Kent C. Dodds everywhere. And seriously, our Discord is a really friendly community. Awesome place to get help as you're getting started with Remix.
Cool. We will put links in the description below. אז תודה חברים לכל מי שצפה בנו, היה לנו סרטון מרגש וסופר מעניין, ותודה לקנט שהיה פה איתנו ולימד אותנו הכל על רימיקס. כמו שזה נראה, זה פריימוורק ממש מבטיח, אני בטוח אשתמש בו. ואם יש לכם שאלה על כל דבר, אז אתם מוזמנים לקהילת הפרונט-אנדיסטים בפייסבוק ובלינקדין, וכמובן להשאיר לנו תגובות למטה ושאלות, אנחנו נשמח לענות, או לקנט בטוויטר ובכל מקום שנמצא באתר שלו. עד שכחו לתת בלייק, להירשם לערוץ, וכמובן ללחוץ על הפעמון כדי לא לפספס סרטונים חדשים. נתראה! Yeah! Wow!